How has John Wooden impacted your coaching career?
Well, I mean, the big buzzword now is culture, and actually, I when I went to college at University of Houston, we we played UCLA. We had a really good basketball team. Obviously, they did too. And the biggest game of the all time was the game in the Astrodome, where University of Houston beat UCLA. And they had a really good player. I don't know what happened to him that played for UCLA, named Lou Alcindor. And I don't know whatever happened to him because I thought he was a great player, but I think he changed his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But anyway, he they played in that game, and we had a guy named Elvin Hayes was the first team All-American and scored 39 points in that game against UCLA, and we upset them. They had won I don't know how many in a row, but that's when I first learned about John Wooden. Really was, seeing those UCLA teams, this year after year winning, and actually they beat us in the playoffs and won the national championship that year. But you couldn't help but notice him. And I was also around a really good basketball coach at UTEP. It was Texas Western at the time. My dad was coaching there, and his name was Don Haskins. And the UTEP team won the national championship with 5 minority players playing first time ever. And so the movie about that, and probably people know about that too. So I was being around good coach. My dad, I feel like, was a really good coach. So,
Sure.
Being around coaches that win, there's something to it. It's not only the players, although it obviously takes players, and we know that's important and a big aspect, but it's the way you teach and the things you do is what I found out going into it. I was around Coach Bill Yeoman at University of Houston. I played for him, and he won. He's in the Hall of Fame too. So, this is the influence of people that were really great coaches and how they did it. Well, Wooden put out his pyramid, and if you go through it, there's just so many things that make sense about team and how you. It's not how you handle people; it's how you work with people, and so that's what I learned from that. And then, like I say, people are talking more and more about culture, and it's really attitude. It's how your team, what your attitude of your team is, and the way you influence that. And I did tell Sean McVay when I first went there, the way you influence it is you talk to them every day. Every day you talk to the players, and you tell them what you expect, what the standards are, all those things, and that's how you get them to buy in, so to speak, trying to accomplish. And so, and Wooden, he has a whole program and a way of thinking, and also the way he implemented things. So that I don't know how many games he won, but it was phenomenal, and he kept winning and winning and winning. And again, he had really good players, but he also his teaching methods and his whole culture was outstanding.
So you talked about being around winners, and obviously your father growing up in John Wooden and learning from these guys. What principles did you take from these guys specifically?
Yeah, it's about people. Life's about people. Coaching's about people. It's about communication, uh, and as a football coach, it's about teaching. Teaching what you're trying to get over to people. So, and how you teach and the drills it takes, and just like studying for tests. Well, you're teaching. I tell coaches, you have the test, and you have all the answers. So give it to the players, and they know what the answers are. They should be able to play better. So, and then coaches that say, "Hey, we made too many mistakes," better look at themselves, because you're the teacher. And like I say, you have the test and all the answers. Well, you're not getting the answers over to them. So, and I tell guys, when I was in college, if somebody gave me the answers to the test beforehand, and that happened, and they gave me the answers to the test, I made 100 on that test. Your players should make 100 on the test. So um, I just hate after games that coaches say, well, we made too many mistakes. Well, we really is you, the coach, because you're not getting it taught.
Is there anyone currently in the NFL that you see projecting the same principles of you as you grew up, or Wooden, or what you learned from your father?
Hopefully, I've influenced some guys I've coached with, and there's guys who are throughout the league, and one of them's my son, so I'm
Yep.
hoping that he took some of that, as I did from my father. So, but everybody has their own style, and like I say, you're the influencer, the head coach I'm talking about, but even the assistant coaches, um, coordinators certainly have their area where they're in charge of, and they're the leader within that group. But an assistant coach, that's what his job is help teach the things to get accomplished, to get what you want across. So it takes all of us.
So around this time, this is obviously free agent time and leading up to the draft. If you're in your role as a head coach or a defensive coordinator, what preparations are you looking at currently on February 23rd?
Yeah, well, it's a catch-up time for coaches, because you don't get to study all year round these players. You're not familiar with them. You're familiar with your own team and what's going on there and what's happening there. So, uh, you have to catch up video wise. Watch their games. Gather information. Certainly get help from scouts because they're the guys that have been with them. And what I always wanted to know too was not only what they thought about them and so forth. We want to know about. You don't know the player. The scout does know the player. Through meeting the player, being around people that he knows that tell him about what kind of person he is and all those things, and those things are important. Well, the one thing I wanted to know really from scouts that I couldn't find out from the video and stuff was what kind of worker he was, what kind of practice guy he was, because I think that's important as to what kind of worker they are and whether they get better. Um, and then, smart players get better. So I always wanted to know about that, and I'm talking about football smart players,
Right.
not just the IQ tests that we give them, but football smart players. But scouts knew those things, or had a better chance of knowing about those things. So I wanted to know what kind of worker he was and what kind of um, football IQ he had, and if he worked at it and he's smart, he's going to get better. Now I had to judge his talent level where it is in college and project,
Mhm.
but the projection, a lot of it is how football smart the guy is, and what kind of worker he is,
Right.
what kind of work habits he has to accomplish to being better than he is on the film, better than he is on the video.
Is there anyone outside of sports that you admire and learn from their teachings?
Oh, outside of sports. Well, let's see. Football is pretty much my life, So, growing up as a coach's son, so teachers along the way, I think, one of my math teachers in college was an influence on me just because I liked the way he taught. It made it simple enough for me. I think teachers overall. And a lot of coaches, certainly assistant coaches, because and I learned a lot from my dad, but I learned a lot from the coaches that he was around because they were talking football and I was just sitting there listening, so I got to be a part of it. So and when they argued about things, they'd come out with some kind of resolution that why they did it, and you learn the whys and so forth, and and how they accomplish things. So mostly just coaches in my life.
What's the next step for you? What are you trying to get back in coaching? How is that process going? What's the next step for Wade Phillips?
Yeah, I was trying to get back in, but it doesn't look good for me now. Now we're into February, so I want to get back. Obviously, I wanted to get back last year, but that didn't happen. So I worry about being out 2 years just because they lose sight of you. For one, I've been out before. I was out in 2014, but I came back and we won the Super Bowl. So
Mm.
I thought, well, that's pretty good. That we were out and I came back in uh, and help work with a defense that was one of the greatest of all time, really.
Right.
And we had great players. Don't get me wrong. So that was a big part of it. But wherever I've been, we've been successful. So I just feel like I could help people. Help people get better, help people win. And I do think, obviously, I think experience is important too, because some people haven't experienced the things that I have. So maybe I can help somewhere there. But you still have to have somebody to hire you. So I haven't found that person this year.